Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new to my channel, my name is Erica and I make a lot of creepy, supernatural, paranormal-y type of videos, and I am back again with another one. Also, if you guys have no idea what Country Spooks is, it's a series that I started not too long ago where I talk about like the scariest, creepiest, most paranormal story per state in all 50 states of the United States. Wow, I could say states so many times. And today I am back again with another installment of my series. Today we're going to be talking about a little something different that I haven't done yet in this series, and it's not so much about the paranormal, more about an unsolved case that I thought was like super fascinating, and I just want to talk about it. We're going to be talking about the VILLISCA Axe Murder House in Iowa, and this is one of the places that I feel like not enough people are talking about, considering how many scary movies and things like that this case is actually inspired. So between the evening of June 9th and the early morning of June 10th, 1912, the family of 6 and 2 house guests were brutally murdered in the small town of VILLISCA, Iowa. Their murders were beyond gruesome. There's no words to put in how actually terrible their deaths were and how sad it is to think about how unsolved this murder was, but we're going to get into all the details later. They were all found with their skulls crushed, and the house consisted of 6 people, and at the time they had 2 house guests, so I believe one of the daughter's friends were staying there as well, and they unfortunately lost their lives too. The Moore family consisted of Joseph Moore, who was 43, Sarah Montgomery Moore, who was 39, Herman Moore, who was 11, Catherine Moore, who was 9, Boyd Moore, who was 7, and Paul Moore, who was 5. Now, this was the family, and the 2 guests were the Stillinger sisters named Lena and Ina. They were roughly around Catherine's age. They were friends, and the reason why they ended up in this house in the first place was on June 9th, there was some type of church event in the neighborhood, and I guess Catherine begged her parents, like all little kids do, to have her 2 close friends sleep over, and after, the Stillingers' parents allowed that, they went back to the house, and they were just planning on having a regular evening. Unfortunately, that is the opposite of what happened. I know this is not going to make sense, but I can only talk about the evidence that was there and kind of just like lay it out for you guys and have you guys decide what happened, because the whole case is very confusing, and to this day they don't know who did it. It's an unsolved case. It's probably one of the most infamous unsolved cases, and it's just really sad to think about, but we're going to talk about that later. Now, one of the very first people to actually discover that something was wrong with the house and something just wasn't right was their neighbor, Mary Beckham. She claimed that early in the morning, the Moores had typical things that they did in the morning, like their routine, their chores, and she said that around 7 o'clock when all of that started happening, nobody was outside. The house felt unnaturally still. That's exactly what she described it as. It was unnaturally still, and she was worried because usually, like Sarah might be in the garden or doing something, but nothing was going on. It was like the house was just lifeless, and she was worried. So she, as well as other, local people in the neighborhood, went to check on them, and all of the doors were locked. And eventually she had, I'm assuming, a friend or relative or somebody basically break into the house to see, and that's when they discovered all of like the horrific things that were going on. The first bodies to be discovered were Lena and Ina. I hope I'm saying that name right. I really do, but they were the first to be discovered because they were on the first floor in the guest bedroom. So when they found the bodies, they were all covered in bed sheets, and obviously because they were bleeding to death, the bed sheets were soaked in blood. And if you guys could think about it, that would scare the hell out of you guys too. It would scare the fuck out of me if I walked into someone's house for whatever reason, maybe because I was worried about them, and I saw that. I don't even know how my brain would like rationally react. This is kind of like the downfall of the investigation. We have to consider that this happened in 1912, so the technology back then is obviously not the same as it is today. I believe that I don't even think they had DNA testing. I also feel like thumbprinting was a new phenomena that a lot of police departments didn't understand. I also consider that this is in a small town in Iowa, so I don't necessarily think that they had connections to those resources yet. If that's not bad enough, what the locals in the town did kind of make it worse and kind of make it harder to figure out who did this like heinous crime. Like I said, considering the time is really important, because when Mary discovered this, her first instinct wasn't necessarily just to call the police. She told everyone in the neighborhood, and they were all petrified for the right reasons, because like I said, they don't have technology like we do today. So they were terrified. They kind of, half of the neighborhood kind of like shut down their own property and kind of like wanted to guard down their houses, because obviously there's like a deranged murder on the loose. The other half was the reason why this case is as complicated as it is. They were the half that went into the house and basically tampered with the evidence, which they didn't know at the time was bad, but now it'll ruin an entire case if you tamper with evidence, because there's more fingerprints. And so that's what they were doing. They were walking in the house, they were touching the bodies, they were touching the evidence, essentially. So that made the cops' job a lot harder. Throughout all of this, throughout the investigation, there was one lead, but it wasn't a very strong lead. Actually, it kind of led to nowhere except a hung jury. And it was with this man named George Kelly. George Kelly was a traveling preacher, and if you guys ask me, he was a little deranged himself. I think he was one of those Bible bumpers that kind of thought that he had essentially powers. The way that he's described was somebody who thought that if he committed sins, he would basically be able to speak the sermon a little bit like more miraculously. It's very confusing to talk about it, but essentially, if we like kind of analyze him in present time, he's not mentally all right, if that is like the most political way to say it. And he actually basically confessed to the murder. He said that he heard voices that told him that he had to do this in order to like protect the world, and the voices were telling him that like if he killed this family or he did this, all the bad in the world would be gone. And obviously that's not true. But anyway, he says that like this voice and like this shadow appeared and gave him an axe and told him to break into the house, kill the children first, etc. It was like this voice was guiding him into committing these terrible, terrible murders. Now, the problem with him was that eventually when the cops got to him and like obviously tried to get him to confess, he took everything he said back. He's like, no, I didn't say that. No, I didn't commit the crime. But like the thing about him that kind of like makes this a little bit hard to explain was that he did deny it, but he also said, I don't know who did it. It could have been me. I don't know. It could be you. Like it was very clear that his consent he wasn't there enough to kind of help this case. So instead, they charged him with the murders of Ina and her sister and Lena. And like I said, he was put on trial, but nothing came of him being the murderer, I guess. Long story short, they don't have any idea who did this, and that's the most upsetting part. And I feel like if, like I said, if this was in a different time, like now, this case could be solved like this, because the evidence was so fucking like bad, like it was horrible. And I just want to kind of touch base on what was in this house. So I did read over the report and like read little things, but I'm not going to mention everything, obviously. I just want to talk about things that kind of really struck me. Now, one of the craziest things that struck me was actually in the kitchen, where there was a pot of blood water just like on the table, and next to it was a plate. Guys, listen to this. A plate of unfinished food. Yes, you heard me. Yes, unfinished food. This serial killer literally broke into the house, killed this family, and then went and made himself a plate of food. Who does that? Okay, but that was one of the evidence. And then I guess the other creepiest things were like some places in the house, like in the room where the parents were sleeping, there was, I think they said it was a 2-pound slab of bacon on the floor, like uncooked bacon wrapped in a towel on the floor. And then there was another 2-pound uncooked bacon wrapped in a towel in like another room. There were cigarette butts just laid out on the floor, aka DNA evidence everywhere. So it wasn't like this killer was really covering his tracks or her tracks. And that is probably the most upsetting thing about the story, was that there was so much incriminating evidence that will never be discovered or never be able to figure it out, because I mean, they didn't have the technology back then, and people were, you know, tampering with the evidence. It's just like there was literally evidence everywhere, and they just couldn't ever do anything about it. They could never catch this person, and it's just so frustrating. Another thing that's a bit upsetting about this is that this could have been prevented if Josiah, who was the husband and like the father, really looked in his house, because according to, you know, more recently, a lot of investigators are saying that it was most likely that the killer was hiding in their front closet the entire time, that this killer scouted out the place and knew that this was not a random attack. It was going to happen. He planned it out. Only because of the way that the doors were locked and because of the way that, like, the house was set up, it was easy to, like, get in and do something like this. So they were pretty positive that this person was hiding in the closet. And had Josiah, or I hope I'm saying his name right, actually looked in the closet, he could have prevented, obviously, his own death and everyone else's death, his entire family's death. Now, as far as paranormal activity, like I said, I haven't found much online, but you can go on tours in this house. They do offer tours. Granted, they are kind of pricey to go on, but I think it is worthy if you're like super into this, and I would definitely love it. This house in this case has been like an inspiration to a lot of different movies and stuff like that, and they get deals and offers to kind of like feature it in a lot of different things. So it's clearly a popular place to check out and to basically explore. So if you guys are interested in that, I definitely recommend doing it, because I think you would get a good experience. There are testimonials, like some testimonials online, where specifically this one case, this woman said that when she was on the tour, she wanted, you know, a little shred of evidence that there was some paranormal activity going on. So she asked the children, specifically like Lena and Ina, to turn on her flashlight, and they did instantly. So if you're wanting to like investigate somewhere new or somewhere that you've never heard of, I definitely recommend this place, because I think you would have a very interesting experience. I do wonder what happened on the night of June 9th and morning of June 10th, and who possibly did it. I want to know, like, I'm so curious. I want to know if it's somebody like a townie, or maybe it's just a random person traveling. Some people think that it could have been like a jealous family member. It's all speculation, and it's really sad, because at the end of the day, a whole family was slaughtered, and it put the neighborhood in an entire frenzy. But yeah, guys, that is all that I have for you today. I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys found this interesting. It is a little different than what I've done in the past Country Spooks videos, but this is so, like, it was so crazy not to talk about it. And so yeah, I just hope you guys like this. If you do like videos like this, or like this subject matter for my series, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that it could be somebody that they have known? Because it's important to keep in mind that Josiah was a very successful man, and he did have enemies, but he was also a good man, and people liked him, so who knows. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to become a member of the Ghosty fam. Hit the notification bell to be notified when the next Country Spooks episode comes up. And I hope you guys are having a great day. Stay cool, stay spooky. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.